welcome everyone here today. Thank you for coming. We, the Minnesota Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence, are here today to express our outrage at what has happened in the Minnesota House this year. My name is Heather Marten, that's HEATHERMARTENS, and I am Executive Director of Protect Minnesota. I'm here to say that we have a right to be safe in our communities. Right now, Minnesota law does not protect that right. As long as it is legal for someone like Rochelle Inselman to go online or go to a gun show and buy a gun in a private sale, we are not safe. Rochelle Inselman was a known dangerous person. She went online and legally bought a gun without a background check after failing a background check at her police station. She bought this gun and she emptied it into a man that she had been stalking. That is inexcusable. We have the right to be safe in our communities, and we are not getting that right. We've been told that we have to compromise, so we compromised. We gave up the assault weapons ban, which could have prevented Sandy Hook. We gave up the high-capacity magazines ban that could have prevented Aurora. But we stuck with universal background checks because they are the cornerstone of making our communities safe. And now we are hearing from people like Representative David Dill that even the gun show loophole won't do. David Dill, whose side are you on? Are you on the side of the community that deserves safety? Or are you on the side of the gun traffickers and the criminals who right now have easy access to dangerous weapons? I asked David Dill to justify his actions against background checks that are supported by 90% of Americans, by the police, Minnesota police and peace officers, the county attorneys, the police chiefs, all of these organizations that stand behind me today. I ask you, how much courage does it take to vote with the public will instead of the gun traffickers? We've been told that background checks already exist, but only in certain cases. That's not enough. We've been told that our right to be safe is not as important as convenience. I ask you, will you stand up for the rights of our communities to be safe, or will you stand with the gun lobby and the gun traffickers? We urge David Dill to come out and explain himself to the public. Thank you. Our next speaker is Amy Eilberg.
What Americans want.
I am Rabbi Amy Eilberg, E-I-L-B-E-R-G, and I work with Jewish Community Action. Fact. The highest of all values in Jewish tradition is the value of life itself. This is a value statement not true just of Jews. It's shared by Christians and Muslims, by Hindus and Buddhists, by people of all faiths and of no formal religious faith. There is simply no value higher than the value of human life, especially of innocence. Fact. According to Federal Bureau of Justice statistics, firearms are associated with 31,000 deaths every year in our nation. Fact. Those supporting sensible gun violence policy in the state of Minnesota, after offering compromise after compromise, sought a vote on just one small piece of law, the gun show loophole, supported by a vast majority of Minnesotans, including gun owners. So I ask, why? Why will the Minnesota House of Representatives not even bring this policy to a vote on this very modest proposal? There's a great deal of misinformation circulating about this issue, which understandably arouses passions among us, but here are 4 more brief facts. According to the United States Supreme Court, the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution is a treasured right, but it is not an unlimited right. So the assertion that closing the gun show loophole would violate constitutional rights is a false issue. Fact number 2, it is eminently possible to enact legislation that honors the Second Amendment, respects the culture of law-abiding gun owners, and reduces the unconscionable rate of gun deaths. Fact number 3, members of the Minnesota legislature who oppose this bill will never know which of the hundreds or thousands of lives that are likely to be lost in the state of Minnesota before the next session begins could have been prevented by this legislation. If this bill could prevent one parent from losing her child, one child from losing his parent, one student from losing a friend to gun violence, it would be a moral obligation for our state to enact this law. And fact number 4, those of us who support life-saving gun violence prevention measures will not be deterred by this colossal failure on the part of the Minnesota legislature, because the values that have driven us to this day will not change tomorrow or the day after or the day after that. We will work for life-saving gun violence prevention policies until we reach our goal, because our deepest and highest values depend on it.
Hello, my name is Sami Rahamim, R-A-H-A-M-I-M. When I came to testify here before the House Public Safety Committee 3 months ago to tell the story of my father, an immigrant living the American dream who died the American nightmare, I told legislators about the polling and about the will of the American people and the will of the people of Minnesota, who wanted to see background checks required for all sales of handguns and assault weapons, and that was questioned by many. Could it really be that nearly every single legislative district in the state, the majority supported universal background checks? Could it really be that 75% of people overall in Minnesota supported universal background checks? Well, if that polling wasn't enough, the absolute nosedive taken in the polls by a number of U.S. senators who voted against the U.S. Senate bill, most of them in red states, makes the public sentiment crystal clear. In Arizona, where 70% of the voters support background checks, a very similar percentage to here in our state, no vote Jeff Flake now has a 32% approval rating. Or in Ohio, where 72% of voters support universal background checks, no vote Senator Rob Portman has a 26% approval rating. So it seems to me that Speaker Thissen is trying to protect the caucus. But after he and Majority Leader Murphy looked me in the eye, after I looked them in the eye and told them my story of gun violence, I think it's fair for me to look them in the eyes now and ask them if it's the caucus that really needs protecting and not hardworking Minnesotans like my father and countless other kids, young adults, and people of all ages from around the state. Democrats, it's a mistake to side with the NRA, because if you choose to side with a lobby that traffics in fear as much as guns are trafficked in our streets, then I think it's clear to Minnesotans on what ground you stand.
Where is the clergy with the NRA? Where?
Hi, my
my name is Jane Kay. That's Jane, and the last name is Kay, Kay. And I'm with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I come before you this morning as a mother who represents thousands others like me who are angry with the senseless gun violence across our communities. Too many children have died due to the increasing easy access to guns and our state's inability to stand up to the gun industry that believes lives are less important than profit. In Minnesota, we are being told that a universal background check bill will not now be stopped and not allowed to be heard on the floor of the Minnesota House. We had believed after Sandy Hook we could bring common sense gun laws to our state. As the weeks went by, we compromised. We put aside our hopes for a chance to keep assault weapons out of the hands of civilians and in the hands of the military where they belong. Even high-capacity magazines were put aside. As mothers, we understand change takes time, but with the will of the majority behind us, we believed our state would pass a universal background check bill that would be a step in the direction of assuring our children we are doing all we can to keep them safe. But that has all been swept aside by those who make laws in our state. Once again, we tuck our children into bed at night praying that it will not be their school, their movie theater, or their place of work where the next shooting will take place, because we know in our hearts there will be more. It is only a matter of time. Mothers have, since the dawn of time, had a universal instinct to protect our children. It unites us across cultures, religions, race, and even politics. Moms Demand Action is a nonpartisan group. We have one goal, and that is to bring common sense gun laws to our state and country. We are growing every day. We are not going away. There is a force much stronger than any political lobby group. That force is the universal love of mothers. You can count on us being around until that day we can send our children off into the world knowing we have done all we can to make sure they return to us at the end of that day. Minnesota state legislators, I implore you, choose children, not guns.
My name is James Erlandson, Erlandson. I'm pastor of Lutheran Church of the Redeemer in St. Paul and a leader in Isaiah, a faith-based organization of 100 congregations in the Twin Cities metro area and St. Cloud. I speak as a person of faith in response to the failure of our state legislature to act in response to gun violence. Our faith teaches us that we are all connected as one human family, particularly in times of suffering. When one child dies from senseless gun violence, we all grieve. I have experienced this pain personally when 20 years ago, my brother-in-law was gunned down in a violent robbery in Providence, Rhode Island. And I have presided or attended too many funerals for young people who have died senselessly from gun violence in St. Paul. In all faith traditions, People of faith have a God-given mandate to protect the weak and the vulnerable, to seek peace in our communities, from small rural towns to the largest cities, to seek peace in our communities, to love our neighbor and cherish human dignity. For us to witness the continuing pain and suffering caused by gun violence and do nothing is not an option. But this year, the U.S. Senate failed to pass universal background check legislation, which was a compromise proposed by those who found common ground in seeking to prevent future tragedies such as the one at Sandy Hook. In our own state of Minnesota, there has been much discussion of possible legislation to address gun violence. But because there has been no willingness on the part of the gun lobby to compromise, House leadership has given up on passing any legislation at all this session. If so, this is a colossal failure of our elected leaders and of our responsibility as citizens to respond to the tragedies of gun violence that occur in every community and legislative district in our state. When the great majority of people support reasonable safeguards to protect all of us from gun violence, such as universal background checks and closing gun show loopholes, there is no reason that compromise cannot be reached in our own state legislature. People of faith will take the lead when elected leaders falter, to bring people of goodwill together to find common ground, to respect every Minnesotan's freedom to be safe in our communities. May God grant us the courage and the faith to act. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jason Langworthy, and I'm here today on behalf of Children's Defense Fund Minnesota. That's JASONLANGWORTHY. Children's Defense Fund Minnesota advocates for policies that improve the health, safety, and well-being of Minnesota children. We are greatly disappointed and dismayed that key legislation to keep our children safer will not be moving forward this session. We urge legislative leadership to reconsider this decision and prioritize our children and our community. The expansion of background checks, including sales at gun shows, and the increasing market for sales over the internet is needed to protect our children from gun violence. Guns kill more children under 5 than law enforcement officers in the line of duty. It is essential that children feel safe in their homes, schools, and communities, and we must make every effort to ensure that. It is critical that we move measures forward this session to protect children, not guns. Thank you.
Reconsider now.
Reconsider now. Reconsider now. Reconsider now. Reconsider now. Reconsider now. Reconsider now. Reconsider now. Reconsider now. Reconsider now.
So I'd like to point out that there is something you can do as anyone watching from on television or on video. You can text PROTECT to 75309 to take action. And I'm now ready to take questions along with Vic Rosenthal of Jewish Community Action, if you have any questions. And also our speakers will take questions. Any questions? I think that he has a responsibility to reconsider that decision, yes. You want to speak to that?
There's 18 days left to the session, or 19 days left. Representative Thissen, the Speaker, the Democratic majority, made a promise. This was going to be heard. This is not a caucus issue. This is an issue of life and safety, as others have said. And we believe that the votes can be there to do that. We've been You're hearing a lot about all the emails that they're getting from the other side and all the calls. We've been doing the same thing. We think the Minnesota people are on the side of passing this, not next session, this session. And we think if the majority will listen, it can still be acted on in the next 2.5 weeks.
I guess my question is, even if you could not pass it, would you like to have it on the record?
Yes, absolutely. There's a short supply of accountability these days. At least in the U.S. Senate, there's a vote. And as you can see from what's been going on since then, senators are being taken to task for their failure to pass it. We think the same thing should happen in Minnesota. There should be a vote so that we know where people stand, and the Minnesotans have a right to know who they can talk to and who they need to put pressure on in order to make sure that if it doesn't pass this year, it sure will pass next year or the year after. Vic Rosenthal with Jewish Community Action.
Can you spell it?
Rosenthal.
Any other questions?
The victims have a right to a vote.
So, one of the other. Did you want to add something? Okay, go ahead. One of the other things that I would like to speak to, there is an ad running on the radio right now about Rochelle Inselman, and it is absolutely the case that it is legal right now to avoid a background check by going to a private seller at a gun show or online. And that is unacceptable. And the legislature is doing nothing about that. I'd encourage you all to call David Dill and ask him for his comment on this issue. Tell him to justify why is it okay with him that anybody prohibited from buying a gun can avoid a background check so easily. Is that okay with him? Thanks.
Reconsider now.
Reconsider now. Reconsider now.
Reconsider now. Reconsider now. Reconsider now. Reconsider now. Reconsider now. Reconsider now. Reconsider now. Reconsider now. Reconsider now. Reconsider now.
Bring it to a vote.
Bring it to a vote. Bring it to a vote. Bring it to a vote. Bring it to a vote. Bring it to a vote. Bring it to a vote. Bring it to a vote. Bring it to a vote. Bring it to a vote. Bring it to a vote. Bring it to a vote. Bring it to a vote. Bring it to a vote. Bring it to a vote.
Listen to the people.
Listen to the people. Listen to the people.
It's what America wants.
Yeah.